This is the tale of the worst Call of Duty game so far. Every other year, Activision brings us a new Call of Duty. Last year's COD has been developed by Infinity Ward, the studio that back in the day re-innovated the franchise. The second partner in crime was Raven Software, who created the multiplayer portion of the game. They created titles like Wolfenstein 2009, Star Wars Jedi Academy, and Star Trek Elite Force. So one would think that these highly accomplished studios would put out the best COD in years, but they didn't. Actually, quite the contrary is the case. Infinite Warfare is the usual bland mix so many other Call of Duties have been before, and it is as generic as a shooter can be. But let us start from the beginning. On November 4th, 2016, the newest COD title was launched, and like its early trailers showed us, it takes place in the near future, shortly after the events of Call of Duty Ghosts. But even though both games take place in the same universe, there are no references to the previous title. No meeting old characters or visiting before-seen places that have changed over time. The world building has been too much of a rush, and they really gave away good opportunities to bring some continuity into the franchise. You know, giving the player some incentive to get invested into the story and maybe even play some previous games to understand the background better. But why am I even talking about this? You already know that they don't give a shit about creating a compelling storyline or even a universe. But at least this Call of Duty was diverse enough for Polygon.
You got eyes on this, Reyes?
Affirmative. Let's get in there!
In the first mission, you play a faceless soldier, and along with two other unimportant characters, you land on the Jupiter moon Europa to recover a mysterious superweapon. After about 10 minutes of gameplay, you are being presented the main antagonist, Jon Snow, the leader of the Settlement Defense Force of Mars. And of course, he speaks with an evil accent to make sure even a 14-year-old knows he is the evil guy.
How many did you come with?
I have a gravelly voice with a big full accent. I have an eye patch and I wear a nice suit. This means I am leader of bad guy.
The first mission is of course more or less a tutorial, because an actual skippable tutorial is missing. So the campaign begins with teaching us to press R to reload. Thanks Call of Duty, I didn't know that. The game proceeds to explain all the other items of the game, which you won't really need unless the game forces you to use them. After the first mission/tutorial, the real game begins, and we are being introduced to the game's protagonist, Lieutenant Reyes, played by Brian Bloom. You meet up with your superior officer, played by John Marshall Jones, and complain about something. Shortly after that, two other characters join you, one played by Jamie Gray Hyder and some robots synchronized by Jeffrey Nordling. Having real actors makes everyone forget that the game actually isn't great. This whole thing seems to be Call of Duty's new shtick. Last time we had Kevin Spacey basically playing his character from House of Cards, and this time we have a whole bunch of celebrities. I guess this is what you have to do when the game can't convince anyone with gameplay anymore. I have the feeling I know where the budget went, apart from the advertising. At this point, spoiler warning for the main story. Alright, you have been warned. We have barely met the main protagonists who accompany us for most of the time as the great catastrophe happens. It's parade time, Earth's military is showing its might and countless big space battleships are hovering over the city. Unfortunately, Earth has some big-ass gun system called ATIS, which is designed to destroy big space battleships hovering over cities. Guess what happens now? Right, some extremist manages to get into the control of ATIS, and in the next moment you'll see burning ships exploding and crashing into the city. Excuse me, I'm not sure, how was this defense system called again? Excuse me? Anus? Curious. Call of Duty was never known for its deep, complicated story, especially Black Ops 3 with its pseudo-story. But what you get here is so predictable that not even Michael Bay could make a movie out of it.
Those aren't ideas, those are special effects! I don't understand the difference.
Not only that the story isn't good, all the characters stay one-dimensional through the entire maximum 7-hour campaign, and that includes all side quests. These heroes fit perfectly into the cliché movie/military roles. The Admiral, we have to do what we must do. Reyes, the one you play, the my men first guy. Salt, hi, I'm the tough military woman, and we are brothers in arms, siblings in arms. Omar, hey, I'm an infantryman. I know this is war. You're not. You are just an officer who just came from boarding school. One mission later, hey, we are the best buddies, etc.
Salt, you with me?
Always.
Captain's place is on the bridge.
Not this captain.
Infinity Ward misses the opportunity to write an interesting story besides, hooray, we are the good guys, and the other are the bad guys, because they're evil, and that's it. The antagonist, Admiral Koch, or however you pronounce him, is just bad because he wants to destroy Earth. Amazing motivation, I can really relate to that.
We will break that! Their cities will burn along with the pages of their history. Mars it turns.
Every single character stays one-dimensional, except for the robot Ethan. He's the only one which has a little bit of depth to him. Kinda ironic that the most interesting person is not even a real person. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare also takes a big sip out of the war games cliché bottle with the "oh, war is horrible" conversations. But a second later, you kill hundreds of enemies, cutting their throats, taking off their helmets in space, or blowing up windows of the bridge of an enemy spaceship, so the crew gets sucked out into space and dies a slow and horrible death in the cold vacuum.
Force in, let's go! Staff Sergeant, cover the exit.
After the captain dies in the battle for Earth, we, as the protagonist, take command over the space battleship Retribution. After we cleared the moon from the remaining SDF forces, the game gives us, surprisingly, full control over what to do next. On a desk in the center of the bridge, we are able to choose from core and side missions which further the progression of the story. Adding to that, every completed mission grants us upgrades, new weapons and/or attachments. After a couple of missions, Reyes, the main protagonist, transforms into a super soldier. Sadly, all the upgrades you get only affect the protagonist and not the crew or the ship. Infinite Warfare throws a lot of potential out of the window. You cannot upgrade the ship like the Mother Base in Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain, or the Normandy, the spaceship in Mass Effect. The interior of the ship, due to the lack of interactions with your crew, except for a couple "hey captains," appears to be lifeless. The only action you get there are scripted sequences for the missions. All side missions follow the same formula. Either you go on a ship, steal or destroy something, or you go and fly one of these overpowered space fighter jet things and destroy hundreds of other fighters and battleships. Really, these things are so overpowered. I'm thinking to myself, why are they building these huge-ass capital ships or these wannabe Star Destroyers? Why build them in the first place when one of these little fighters gets the job done? Okay, maybe they have a need for troop carriers, but that would be it. The jet missions feel like a Sisyphus task. The enemies aren't a challenge, the battlefield is way too small, your weapons are way too strong, etc, etc. I've never expected a space simulation like Star Citizen, but Infinity Ward could have at least challenged the player a bit more. As for the infantry weapons, I'm happy that you can individualize your weapons. Nonetheless, you have fewer options than Black Ops 3, where you could fit up to 6 attachments to a gun. Now it has been limited to 3 attachments. Again, Infinity Ward misses the opportunity to create new weapons. Not only that they copied the guns from COD Ghosts 1-to-1, and that not only counts for the animations, the other weapons are just modified versions of real weapons. The Volt is a Kalashnikov, the Karma 45 is a Vector, and so on. That in itself is nothing bad. But if you herald the game as something revolutionary and never seen before, go all the way and not just the first few steps. And while we are talking about not going all the way, let's talk about level design. Do you know the bland taste an unseasoned meal leaves behind in your mouth? That's how Infinite Warfare's levels taste. And not even the bombastic script sequences can change that. And also, please don't think that you can destroy anything except glass. If something is to be destroyed, a script sequence does that for you. The levels themselves are linear Call of Duty standard, and if you put their script sequences aside, you can see how little effort the developers put into the level design. Even more, the level barriers are just a joke. Sometimes they didn't even bother to put something in front of you except an invisible wall. Many times you get told that you have a jetpack so you can wall run. But the level architecture doesn't really keep that in mind, and on higher difficulties, it's more of a disadvantage to expose yourself during a wall run. so it basically becomes useless. Adding to that, the movement isn't really well made like Titanfall 1 or 2, where it feels smooth and naturally. COD's current movement is just the old World War II shooter movement with more and more features added onto it. The graphics aren't on the level of a AAA game from 2016. Some textures are low resolution and some of the animations look kinda strange, though admittedly the majority of them is well made, especially in the scenes which are supposed to be used for trailers. The performance is not good for the shown graphics. I got some strange framerate drops without any obvious reason from time to time. For further information on the overall bad technical situation of the game and the initial problems with the PC version, take a look at our COD Infinite Warfare at AAA fail video. And do you see this bullshit here? The developers give us the option to crank up the field of view to 120 degrees, a fucking standard in most PC titles. When you do it in this game, however, you can see through your own arm or Jon Snow's fingers. Why the fuck do they even give us this option in the first place if it doesn't work properly? So for the final conclusion, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare isn't a bad game, but it also isn't a good one. It has the pro points from previous Call of Duties, but also the weaknesses, and it even got a couple of more of those. Infinity Ward wasted potential in unimagined quantity, and when the credits are rolling over the screen and you see how many people worked on this title, you are asking yourself, what the hell were they doing all the time? Maybe stop spending more than half of your budget on marketing and spend more on making a good game. Activision and Infinity Ward prove that they don't have the courage to try new things, to experiment, and if they don't change their business plan, Call of Duty is going to die, and not even the most famous actor can save the franchise then. Especially with their upcoming game Call of Duty World War II, they have been throwing around the phrase going back to the roots.
Yeah, I mean, boots on the ground, classic Call of Duty, run and gun, fast action, strategic gameplay, right? It's what Call of Duty was born with and what we're bringing it back to.
If going back to the roots is just pulling off the same shit as every other year, just in World War II, then good night. We'll see where the franchise will go. As for last year's Call of Duty, so Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, it has been the low point of the franchise for many people. And I guess everyone here at ESCalation would agree with that. And for those of you who like rating systems, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare gets 5 out of 10 escape keys. Originally I wanted to add that the PC version only gets 4 out of 10 escape keys, but meanwhile it is at least running properly, so I guess 5 out of 10 is okay. If you want to play the game yourself, take a look around some online stores. A lot of them are blowing the game out for $19.99 or even $15.99. But don't even think of buying the season pass, don't waste your money. That's it for today. I'd like to invite you to stick around and take a look at some of our other videos, and if you enjoyed this video, why not consider subscribing? So see you guys next time. Till then, have a nice day, and as always, goodbye and guten Tag.